All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another coffee chat, which we haven't done in actually quite a long time. It is, November 18th. And I would like to welcome today our friend Ruth Manfredi from the Cinque Terre. Buonasera, actually.
Yes, buonasera my time at 7 p.m. In Italy. So buonasera, Sarah.
So it's been a while since we have caught up. So for those of you that don't know Ruth, Ruth is my friend in the Cinque Terre. She lives in Vernazza, which is one of the prettiest towns. It's always sort of the poster girl of the Cinque Terre. And if you don't know what the Cinque Terre is, it's a really pretty series of towns that are on the northwest coast of Italy and super popular with travelers to Italy. There's hiking, there's swimming, there's cute little villages, there's a lot of wonderful things to do. So it's a very popular destination. And the reason we're having Ruth join us today is that Ruth and I, even though we've been friends for a really long time, this is our first year of having an actual tour collaboration. And Ruth and her husband Cristiano are going to be running a tour for us of Liguria, which is the entire region, that sort of arc of land from that runs from where, about La Spezia or south of that?
It's slightly south of La Spezia, all the way up to Genoa, and then all the way over to France. So Liguria is this very long, it sort of looks like a boomerang. It's a long, skinny piece of land right between the sea and the mountains. So it also happens to be, I think, one of the most beautiful places in the world. Of course I'm completely biased, but obviously I'm American. So I have lived other places and, I've been in Italy for about 30 years, Sarah, as you know, and my husband is Italian and he's from here. And we have traveled a lot. And I was literally in Puglia last week with a friend of mine who used to live in Vernazza. And everywhere we went, Puglia is gorgeous and it's fantastic. But every time we went to a new town, we're like, yeah, not as nice as Vernazza. I think there is something special about having these little villages that are right on the sea. I also think that the Cinque Terre had a very long history of being rather remote. So people actually still ask me if they're islands, which is a really sort of odd concept because once upon a time there was almost no way to get to them. And then about 100 years ago, the train came in and now you can get there by train, which is easy. But, once upon a time, people really did it by walking and by boat. And one of the things that you were mentioning, of course, the Cinque Terre have these lovely little villages, but and the hiking is incredible because really the soul of the Cinque Terre is wine. So if you think about it's a very mountainous region, Liguria. It's we do not have like big rolling hills like you're going to find in Tuscany or Emilia-Romagna, where they raise cattle and pigs. So in Liguria, we have this mountainous region right up to the sea. So over 1,000 years, people built these terracing into the hillside so that they could grow grapes and put in, olive trees and gardens. So that is part of the reason why I think it's this man-made and natural beauty. And in fact, the Cinque Terre was recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, I think in 1997. And one of the things that they said was it is this really unique combination of natural and man-made beauty. So why are people hiking in the Cinque Terre? Well, one, because it's gorgeous, but two, because a lot of these hikes actually came about over the history of the development of the Cinque Terre, where people were just trying to get from village to village. They were bringing, food to trade. They were going to see, I don't know, their cousin, their friend, their girlfriend. And so, that's sort of the story of how a lot of these hiking trails started to get people to go to their vineyards too.
Yeah, and it was the only way in some cases to get even to the villages. And I mean, if I think about when I first started going to the Cinque Terre in the 90s, they were pretty isolated, actually.
Absolutely.
You had the, pretty isolated.
I mean, I think part of the reason is, okay, so when I think about luxury, okay, I think a lot about luxury because we have two apartments in Vernazza that since 2018 I have been renting to as a vacation rental to guests. So I think a lot about luxury because they're very beautiful. They're right on the sea. You will appreciate, Sarah, because I know you've been there. You, as an architect, like everything is hand built, everything has been made for the place. So when I think about luxury, I always say the Cinque Terre is not luxury. Even our apartments are not luxury. Because when I think of luxury, I think of everything's easy. You have a driver that drops you right off and someone's whisking you away. In the Cinque Terre, whether you are spending a lot or a little, whether you are active or not active, you are going to be doing walking. So when you say like there are certain places you can't get to if you're not walking, there are one of the things we've done with this tour is try to make it so that if you are a very avid hiker, you have plenty of time to do that. And if you're a person who for some reason would rather just sit around to relax a little bit more, there are lots of options to do that too. Now, having said that, if you want to go hiking, yeah, you're going to have to sometimes hiking is walking. And the reason is you're maybe going on, like there's one trail that I love to send people because we used to do it with our kids when they were like 4 years old, 2 years old. Like it's very easy. So if you don't want to do an aggressive mountainous hike, that's easy. And you can also cheat and take a minibus up because now there's a little minibus because I'm talking about the sanctuary of Vernazza, Reggio. So the Cinque Terre are these 5 little villages, as you talked about. And around before the year 1000, people actually lived up in the hillsides, like 300 meters up, because there were pirates that were basically going up and down the coast. And so people couldn't live right on the sea because it was actually too dangerous. So there are these sanctuary churches. There are 5 of them, for each village has their church up above the village. And even to this day, it is still a culturally felt thing to go to this church. And it's a fantastic way to hike and be completely off the beaten path. And, people in 2024 have been talking about how many tourists there are everywhere in Europe. But I'll speak specifically to Italy. It's a boom. It's sort of we had the first post-COVID wave, and then 2024 is just a lot of people are realizing they have one life to live and they all want to come do it traveling. Okay, that's fine. The Cinque Terre can be busy, but if you do the tiniest bit of thinking ahead or planning, and in this case, with this tour that we've done for you, you can totally have an incredible experience that is not crowded. I think I have been thinking a lot about, who is this tour for? Because my husband and I, as you know, we don't go on a lot of group tours. That's not our thing. We don't want to be herded around. And
but you have been on one of my tours.
well, in fact, Sarah, my nice iPhone told me this morning, do you know where we were 3 years ago today?
In Cairo?
Yeah, we were in Egypt.
We were in Egypt
So
together.
just so everyone knows, Sarah and I have known each other for a long time. And at some point, I think you wrote to me and you're like, hey, I had a cancellation. Want to come to Egypt like next week? So I say to my husband, like, hey, I think I'm going to Egypt next week. You're going where? And that was also deep in post-COVID. It was a big deal to think about traveling. So yes, I joined your group tour. And I was thinking the only reason why we would do this with you is because we completely agree. Like your philosophy is our philosophy.
Yeah.
You should be immersing yourself in the place you go and really learning more, which doesn't mean boring, which means fun, which means, doing a lot of different kinds of activities. Because one of the things that I was thinking about is in my own life, I like to travel. One of the things that I find is sometimes I'm too busy doing other stuff. Like I think everybody is. Maybe you have a business. Maybe you have to take care of children. Maybe you have adult parents that need some help. So people have all sorts of things that take up their time. And you don't always have time to find exactly what to do everywhere you go. So to me, this feels like Cristiano's Italian, I'm American. We see it from both viewpoints, of course. So when we put together this tour, we were thinking, like, if our best friend comes, where would we take them? If we are with people who are super active, would they like this tour? Absolutely. I had a knee operation a few years ago. So I always think about, okay, well, could I do this tour? I don't want to, I personally am not going to be doing like the most aggressive hiking. That's just not going to be for me right now. And of course you can do this tour because we've taken the aggressive hiking and made it optional, or there's an e-bike tour as part of it. And in fact, it's really easy. It's fun and I could do it. And I'm 40 pounds overweight and like still getting my knee and going. And if I could do it, then anybody can do it. We also think it's really important if you're coming to the Cinque Terre, people need to know about wine, because that is what made the hillsides what they are. So that doesn't necessarily mean you need to drink a lot of wine. I just had a friend come to visit, and she does not drink any alcohol. And I said to her, okay, that's, your choice, of course. I mean, of course I respect that. But I said, I am going to tell you a little bit about wine because it's such an integral part of what made the physical landscape. And it's also a big part of like local culture. So, I think we've tried to put together, and of course we're going on a boat tour because of course you want to be on the sea. And of course, if you want to swim in the deep water, I'm the first person who loves that. But again, some people are a little bit scared of that because they never had that experience before. So of course we've chosen a boat that is really safe, is really nice. You can have fun, you can jump in, but if you want to like jump in just a little bit and kind of hang on, that's another option. So, I think what we've tried to do is what you do, Sarah. I mean, let's put it this way. When I run this tour, if I could be even half as good as Hoda, who is the most incredible tour guide you will meet in your life, who did our Egypt tour, like it will be a complete success. So I feel like my goal, the bar is very high, but one of the things that I really loved about that tour in Egypt was you had plenty of time for yourself. You had plenty of time with other people. You could get to know people in a friendly way, but you never felt forced. And the way it was structured, Hoda had interesting, fun things to tell us all the time. So I felt like everything I did on that tour, I could never do on my own.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key.
That's precisely kind of what I think is at the heart of what I want to do is like, what is the relevance of a tour guide in this day and age? When I started 25 years ago, you needed a tour guide because you didn't have access to Google or Chat GPT or any of these things. You needed a guide to show you what to do because you didn't have access to the information. We were gatekeepers in the past.
Right.
And now people have access to information. So what is the role of somebody like me? I think it's to help people do things that they wouldn't think to do. I think it's important to help them get to the heart of a culture quickly, efficiently, without having to spend a lot of time researching it. But, we make it easy, but we also try to make it something you wouldn't expect. So just wanted to take a quick little heartbeat here and say, for those of you just joining us, if you just jumped into this live stream, I am here with my friend Ruth Manfredi, who we've been friends for many, many years, and she lives in Vernazza in the Cinque Terre on the northwest coast of Italy, one of these beautiful, charming villages. You've definitely seen photographs of Vernazza, I'm sure, at some point. And even though we've just been girlfriends for a long time, actually we ended up coming up with a wonderful tour that we're going to offer this next June of not just the Cinque Terre, it's actually of the whole coastal region, the northwest coastal region of Italy called Liguria. And it's famous for pesto, it's famous for sunshine, boats, the sea, really great food. Genova is from there. Christopher Columbus is from there. Portofino, which is another place you might have heard of, is there. So there's a lot of things that it's known, but it's a little bit unknown, which is, I think, what I really like about this. And also, this is part of my initiative, if I haven't really talked about it too much yet, but my initiative to eventually get you guys to explore all 20 regions of Italy. So that's our big goal for the next 5 or 6 years, is to give everybody the opportunity to enjoy each of the regions of Italy in depth, because it's really like the United States of Italy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, as we were talking about earlier, I'm an American living in Italy for almost 30 years, and I am constantly amazed at how completely different every place you go is. I mean, literally, the food is different. The way people, like how people go about their lives, are different. I mean, yeah, there are 20 regions. They're all different. And frankly, there is so much to explore that is not on people's, agenda. And it should be. But now, so I have a thought about this. You talked about it before. Why would you possibly go on a tour when you can like chat GPT, hey, I'm going on vacation. Where should I go? Okay. First of all, we have had at our apartments in Vernazza almost 600 guests since 2018. So we have these 2 apartments in Vernazza that we go to, and I also rent when we're not there. I will tell you, Sarah, I am constantly amazed. And the people that come are like, travelers. I mean, they're coming, they're booking it on their own, right? So people buy guidebooks, they do internet research, they ask their friends. So a lot of people are people who, clearly are making a big investment, because travel is a big investment if you're coming from the United States, just the plane fare alone, in time and in money. I'm constantly amazed by how people don't really know what to do, or they're following like the stuff they see on Instagram. And then they're like, oh, everywhere I go is really crowded, because they're going where everyone else is going.
That's so interesting you say that, because when I was at the European Tour Operators Association meeting last year, we talked a lot about over-tourism, because it's the big topic, right? Everybody talks about Cinque Terre in particular. That's something everybody talks about. And actually, the statistics are very funny, because of all the destinations you can visit in the world, it's like some very small percentage, like 0.001% of destinations are over-touristed. The thing is that it's because of social media and things where everybody thinks, oh, this is what I should do because everybody else is doing it. And that kind of mob mentality is not great for a trip. I just did 2 consultations this weekend where I sit for an hour or hour and a half with a traveler, and they tell me what they want. We came up with fantastic itineraries which were things that they would have never thought to do, because you're talking to experts who know what they're doing, and that's, I think, what you and I do that's really special, because yeah, I mean, it is possible to see the Cinque Terre without a lot of crowds, which is kind of the question I asked you when I said, hey, can we put together some kind of Liguria tour where we can showcase this beautiful region without people feeling like they're drowning in tourists, right?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that was our goal going in, and I'm hoping that is going to be on our outcome. I think the way you move around makes a big difference. There are a lot of people that, first of all, we're starting in La Spezia. So I think that we made that a very important choice, because You can fly into Florence, you can fly into Milan, you could fly into Rome. You could go off and have your own 3 days before the tour starts doing something else, or a week. I also will point out that if you come to Liguria with us, you could actually go to Sardinia when our tour ends. Am I right? I'm
Yes.
pretty sure.
Yeah, we have a
Okay, so
certain
to me, like, if you're gonna ask me where should I spend my money next year, I want to go to Italy. Oh my goodness. Of course you should come with us to Liguria and Cinque Terre. And then if you have the time, go to Sardinia. That would be like an incredible vacation.
Well, that's an interesting thing to note, because Sardinia, which we actually do have a tour that just started this year. Nobody knows about it because they were private tours, but starting for next year, we're going to do Sardinia tours. But Sardinia, which is its own kind of self-contained world, is off the coast of Liguria, but they have a lot in common, don't they? They have their cultures have always been a little bit connected, right?
I mean, Sardinia is a big island, so of course it is definitely self-contained. I also think there's a lot in common because they both have agricultural roots. Liguria really has never been known as like an industrial or food basket. I mean, Liguria was like Sardinia, really quite agricultural. Now, some of the things that are good about that is we do have a lot of sun. We have these perfect microclimates. So the reason why pesto is the birthplace of pesto is Liguria, specifically Genoa and the area around Genoa, because there is a special basil from Pra that grows right outside of Genoa. And it is incredible because it's a very, very small leaves. You have this combination of the type of soil, this beautiful microclimate that creates hot and cold. And it's right by the sea. So you also have a little bit of salt. It just like our wine, which in fact Sardinia has this in common as well. We have this very special sea and mountain. We're in this little, like, in the hands of the earth, if you want. And it makes for not only a beautiful place, but a really vibrant, terroir, as they say in France. Like, it is this incredible area where olive oil and basil and the Cinque Terre wine and Vermentino down south of us, and other wines throughout Liguria. So I think that makes it really special. I also think, as you were saying, I mean, as my mom sent me the picture walking in Costco, and there was like a picture of Manarola on a TV, on a TV box. So these Cinque Terre villages are very picturesque. And so when people think Liguria, they're like, oh, I'll go for a 1-day day trip because I'm going to be in Florence and I'll just go there. That is just the worst idea. Now, if you're going to have very limited time, you have to make choices. You could, I know we were talking, my husband he does a lot of business to business work, traveling, helping other travel companies to set up, sometimes their clients want to have 1 day. So if you have someone who can organize it, sometimes a 1 day can work. But most of the time, you are seeing the worst of an area because you're there when everybody else is there. I think that the other thing to think about, and I know you've been doing this over the last few years, this idea of the stay vacation or staycation. Now, we wanted to do that, but it's very hard because Liguria is, as we talked about, it's a little bit too far to have one home base because you're going to spend every day then like traveling to places. And I don't feel like that's a vacation either. So we've tried to make it a mix of 3 nights here, 2 nights there, so that you're moving in a very well-crafted way. So sometimes we go from one place to another, and that, you don't have to worry about your luggage. Like, the luggage will come behind you. You don't have to carry it. So that we actually maximize your fun time and minimize your travel time. And I think that is a major issue when you're traveling. I mean, what
Well,
I was saying before.
specific to the Cinque Terre, though, I would also point out that like a lot of people, like I said, I just did a travel consultation and they want to go to the Cinque Terre, and you can't go for one day because getting there takes a long time. It
Sure,
actually, no matter where you are,
absolutely.
it doesn't matter, even if you're in Pisa, even if you're in a town close by, the actual like time it takes to get into Liguria is a lot. I mean, even with a car, because
Okay.
there's a
And
long mountain range that kind of blocks Liguria
exactly.
from the rest of Italy, right? So it's a little bit,
Exactly.
it's the region it is it has a mountain range that runs around it. So to actually get from inland in Italy to Liguria, you're going to spend half a day, you're going to spend several hours. So by the time you get there, you've got a couple hours and then you have to turn around and go back. That
Of
makes no sense.
course.
Yeah.
No, it makes no sense whatsoever. Also because, okay, so I'm a big proponent of the Italian train system. I think trains are fantastic. I do not want to spend my entire half of my vacation on a train. They're not
Yeah.
that great. I mean, this is not like the Italian train system is not, the Orient Express. So of course, Sarah, that is really important. The other thing that really makes a big difference is you want to know enough, and I think this is helpful. You need to know enough about where to go when, so that you can try to minimize any chance that there are day trippers or crowds. The other thing that I was saying is, of these almost 600 guests we've had, I am shocked by how people don't think of the travel time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've only had one guest so far because she's writing to me for next year, and she's like, huh, we're coming from Venice, and I just started looking at the travel time, and it's like 5 or 6 hours by train.
It's the whole day.
And it's the whole day. And she's like, maybe I should add an extra day. And I was like, yes, this is a traveler who's thinking ahead, especially if you want to enjoy your time. You don't
Well,
want to spend, it's tiring. Traveling, it can be tiring. So you don't want to spend all your time
yeah.
walking around to figure out where to go. That's the other thing that I will tell you, Sarah. Everybody thinks they're a travel expert because they looked at a YouTube thing about how to take a train in Italy, or they can watch you how to pack, and then they actually wind up being on vacation and they realize they don't know how to use the train. They have to figure it out. It's uncomfortable because they might not speak Italian. Italy is, solidly in Europe. We're not talking about some foreign culture that's completely unknown. And yet, it's different. It's not America. And, like sometimes there are these things like, you have to actually stamp your ticket once you buy it. So when you take a train, you have to stamp your ticket, because if not, you're going to get a fine. This is like nowhere else has this. You buy a ticket, you get on the train. Okay, Italy has that. So sometimes there are these little dumb things that if you have someone, and that's just like a little, but there is so much more about even how to enter into the culture. For example, I say to people all the time, you may not speak Italian, but Italians are very people driven. They are really about having a human connection. So no matter where you go, it's a restaurant, it's a store, it's even like the kiosk, you have to start with saying hello. And you can learn buongiorno. And anywhere you go, if you connect just by saying buongiorno when you walk into a place in Italy, you will get better service. This is not something that happens in other cultures. And, they'll be fine with you, but you're going to miss, sometimes like Italians will show you products or tell you about things that are off the menu because they just feel like they have a connection with you. And So I feel like Italy is totally different if you understand the culture, and it is definitely different if you speak the language.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a big ask for Americans, but I would say even
yep,
if it's a big ask for Americans and you think, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to figure out how to speak Italian. I have found that with my guests, if I just teach them just hello, please, thank you, just the real basics. I mean, if you have a dozen words,
absolutely.
years ago when I was working on the Rick Steves phrase book for Italian, I said, can we please just have a cut sheet with the most basic phrases that you tear out and you put in your pocket so that when you just can't remember how to say thank you, you can't remember how to say where is, you just can pull it out of your pocket, which I
Yeah,
think I should make one of those anyway, just for people to, a PDF for people to print out. It's so easy to be gracious. And it is true that in Italy, I would say better, more than other countries. Like in France, you do really need to say bonjour to people when you walk in. You have to be
right,
polite. But I would
right.
say the difference between France and Italy is that nobody speaks Italian. Nobody expects you to speak Italian. And when you even try, they're so delighted that they will do anything for you. And I mean, I laugh all the time because I do speak fluent Italian, and it shocks people, and they're just like floored, and they're like, "Can we be best friends now?"
I mean, what it comes down to is it opens doors that you would not have opened otherwise. And that's because Italians are happy if you speak Italian, because in general still don't really love speaking English.
They don't.
So
Yeah,
people
that's
are so thrilled that you're making an effort that then they feel like they could speak to you in English and not feel as embarrassed. It really is about seeing the person that you have in front of them and like recognizing them. Um, I mean, that is one of the things I love the most about Italian culture. People see people for how they are and they accept them for how they are. Um, but that means we're talking about you need a human connection. If you are going to go somewhere and you're like, I don't know, I want a pen, they'll sell you a pen, but you're just a tourist and they're not going to spend time chatting with you or whatever. Whereas if you actually use those words, or, in this case, like go places and do things that you couldn't find on your own, because that's the other thing. It is surprising that in this day, of internet and I don't know, as we were talking about AI, like you'd think you could do everything online. Oh my goodness, Italy is probably maybe the last bastion of, there are so many, I mean, there are places, Sarah, that we were talking about setting this up and they're like, yeah, we don't have a website. No, you can't, like, it's still literally done, a lot of the stuff person to person. So you would never find like this boat you're not going to find on your own. It's like hard enough for us to find it. Like we just got lucky. It was a friend of a friend, because that's how it is still in Italy. I
But I love
mean,
that about Italy, honestly. Like, I mean, I've gone, like, as an example, I've gone on boats in the Aeolian Islands. They don't have a
right.
website. They don't have a published schedule. We found out from somebody we knew, oh, call Gino down at the harbor and they'll try to set you up with a boat cruise. Like, and that's the thing, is we think that Italy has to be like the US and everybody has to be connected. And all the things on Instagram you can definitely find on a website.
Right.
Oh, sure you can, but those are the things that are not for Italians. And I guess that's kind of like the thing I love
Right.
about what we are able to do. I mean, you've
Right.
been in the culture for 30 years. I've been in the culture for almost 30 years. We
Right.
know people, we know how things work. And what's super
Right.
exciting for me as a person who is so invested in Italy is to be able to bring people who have no experience of the country and actually give them a local experience, and a real local experience, not a fake one.
Right.
I would
I mean, that is a very good example
yeah.
of what we're talking about. I mean, one of the things that we've been really conscious about, because we believe in this, and I know you do, where we have dinners, where we have lunches, where we have, a cooking class or a wine tasting, it is all with family owned or very small businesses,
Yep.
because I think that that is absolutely how to make tourism more sustainable. Completely overused word, but in this case, truly. I mean, I want to promote going to eat local food by a restaurant that's owned by local people. That is really important to me. Just like when we choose wine and we're out to dinner, we try to buy it from smaller wineries because, like the biggest winery in the world doesn't need my business, but it really makes a difference. And if you can go, you just have a different experience. I think it's really important also, as a way to really understand that even in our totally globalized world, because you can come to Italy and you could easily eat at McDonald's and all that stuff, but there's still like pride in making things with your hand, pride in your family business, and that's something that I think people get a different feeling from. And that's the Italy that I love. And that's what I hope that people will come experience.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So what I would like you to do now for people is, and again, this is, we're talking about our Liguria and Cinque Terre tour, which is this coming June. It's our premiere departure for Ruth and Cristiano. So why don't you go ahead and just kind of walk us through the itinerary? Because I've looked at it a couple times, but I have to tell you guys, I trust Ruth so much because I know she's an absolute expert in her destination that I just said, hey, you go crazy, do something really neat that's going to wow people, that's going to be something really interesting and different. And for those of you that are not planning on taking a tour, you are an individual traveler, I think that she's got a lot of great little nuggets of wisdom in here as well for you. So why don't you go ahead and go through our itinerary?
So first of all, for anyone who is interested in coming, it's from June 4th through 11th, 2025. So we're going to start in La Spezia. And the reason why we're starting in La Spezia is because La Spezia is what some people call the gateway to the Cinque Terre. It's the closest larger town. It's a little city. So it is very easy to get to La Spezia. If I'm coming from the United States, I'm going to want to fly into, the big airports like Milan, like Rome. I also have to tell you that I personally have had very good experience flying with Swiss Air through Zurich to Florence. So that's just a little, it's Swiss Air is fantastic. I like a direct, if I'm flying internationally, I like to fly direct nonstop. However, if I'm flying, like if I'm visiting my parents when they're in Florida, there is no nonstop option. So I would much prefer to fly through a smaller airport, and Zurich with Swiss Air is phenomenal. Florence is a smaller airport in Italy. You can also, if you're coming from somewhere else, you can also fly into Pisa.
I would recommend actually, because that's so small and close.
Pisa is so easy. Like that would be my number one recommendation, but
British
on where
Airways,
you're flying from.
British Airways has a connection. So for me, I live on the West Coast, so Swiss Air doesn't work for me because they don't fly anywhere here. But for me, I would fly probably British Airways to London and then London to Pisa. That would be one option. You could also fly the Delta Alliance, Air France, KLM, and they can get you to Rome. They can get you to Florence. They can get you to Milan. I don't know if they do Pisa, but I know for sure that British is one of the few that does.
Well, I will tell you, once upon a time, Delta flew from New York JFK into Pisa. I heard a rumor that they're thinking of bringing it back, and that would be incredible. That would be incredible because then if you're coming from the West Coast, you could do an internal flight to New York JFK and then just arrive in Pisa, which is fantastic.
Pisa, I have to say, is one of my favorite airports because it's so easy. So just
so easy.
Quick thought, if you are thinking about flying, even for any reason into Italy, Pisa and Bologna actually are two of my favorites because Pisa in particular, you fly in, it's not big at all. As soon as you get out of baggage claim, there's a people mover that takes you on this little tram to the central train station. And from that train station, you have all of Italy. You can go anywhere. And La Spezia is only what, like less than an hour, isn't it? From Pisa?
From Pisa, it's, well, with the connection, if you're flying, if you're going door to door, it's like an hour and a half. Bear with me 1 second. I need to let my little dog out here. Go ahead, Howard.
So just to remind you, if you're just tuning in now, we are talking to my friend Ruth Manfredi, who lives in La Spezia and in Vernazza in Italy. And we're not going to go over your origin story because we have talked about it before. And I will be posting our interview with Ruth over on my Facebook page so you guys can catch up. But she met every woman's fantasy, being in the Cinque Terre in the sun and missing your train at the end of the night. And then a handsome Italian man comes and sits next to you on a bench and is like, hey, how you doing? That happened, right?
It wasn't quite that cringy. I also think the funny thing is, like, that was just not my fantasy. I never in a million years thought, let me like find an Italian husband. I mean, so, you know, and here we are 30 years later. We're still here. It's going to be, actually, it's 29 years that we've known each other. We've been married for too many years. We have 2 kids. So
somebody's going to make a Hallmark movie out of your
right,
origin.
exactly. I'm going to have to write that book one of these days if I can get myself motivated. I think one of the things that is really nice is that, you know, I have this, I mean, I'm always going to be American. That is who I am. That's where I was born and raised. So I really have this insight into American culture and Italian culture. And that is one of the things that I love to do to help people to navigate Italy and get the most out of it, because, you know, it's not, it's just different. It's a different culture. So if you can have a few little key insights, I think it helps.
I've actually always thought that we are stronger, I think, at explaining Italian culture in some ways, because we are American also, but we're also, I mean, I'm similar to you in the sense I've been in Italy for years on and off, and the language and the culture and the lifestyle and all of that stuff is just so second nature to me. It's just part of who I am. And it's very interesting because I think it's harder for Italians to explain their culture because they don't see how their culture is different, I guess. I'm not sure how to explain it the best, but for me,
I will tell you, I agree 100%.
And misunderstandings between Americans and Italians. I see it and I understand why they're doing it, right? Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, because, to be honest, like, that could also be the discussion of what my marriage is like.
Yes, I'm at.
Cristiano and I have known each other for so long, and he speaks Italian. I mean, of course, he speaks Italian, but he speaks English. And of course, I speak English. And of course, I also speak Italian. And my Italian's great. And yet, Sarah, even after all these years, I think we're married like 21 years, maybe more. We have some days that we are literally talking to each other about 2 totally different things, because I don't get what he's talking about, or he doesn't get what I'm talking about. So if it can happen to us, you can imagine someone who's literally just traveling here, who doesn't know the language, doesn't know the culture. And like, some things are cultural. Sometimes he says something and I'm like, why would you say that? He's like, oh, but in Italian, it means this. Even after all this time, I still learn new words. I still learn new cultural nuance things. And I think you were saying before, and I agree with you 100%. I think the reason why you and I can be these translators of this cultural thing is because we spend a lot of time immersed in Italy, in the culture, but we're also spending a lot of time with Americans who are traveling here. So I feel like people ask me questions all the time, and I see Italy through their eyes. And it reminds me, because if I didn't have guests coming to stay with us in Vernazza, there are a lot of things that I would now take for granted because I live in Italy. And then I have a guest who asks me something about, I don't know, what time they want to go eat dinner at 6 p.m. Ruth, can you help us with a reservation? And I'm like, you can't go eat dinner at 6 p.m. That just, you can't do that. I said, the restaurants that I'm going to send you to, they don't even open till 7. Some of them at 7:30. Like, And if you want to eat dinner at 6 p.m., you're going to be with all the other tourists. Like in a big city, if you go to a restaurant that's open at 6, yeah, all right. Well, but that might not be like the best way to spend your time. I mean, when I travel, I also, Sarah, we're big like foodies and we really like to plan places that we're going to go. And when I travel, I think about my time also as like, how many lunches and how many dinners do I have? And I'm serious and I'm using my time correctly because like sometimes if it's a rainy day, you might want to go out for a big lunch. You can eat less at dinner, skip dinner. Like sometimes that's a good use of your time because you're at the right place. Maybe you're driving somewhere and there's like the perfect restaurant. I mean, there are so many ways to craft your vacation, but I think that food is part of the culture in Italy, and it should be a part of anything you do, no matter even if you're a foodie or not. I mean,
Yeah, it's true. So let's go ahead and run through the
okay,
itinerary then.
perfect. Okay, so we're going to start in La Spezia. We're going to meet and we're going to have a welcome aperitivo and we're going to go out to dinner so that we can get to know each other. And we're going to go to a really nice local restaurant so we can try to start introducing people to our amazing food. And then the next day, we are going to start with a whole day on a boat. We are going to go on a boat tour that's going to leave from the Golfo dei Poeti, so the poets, the Gulf of Poets, which has become called that because, once upon a time, Byron and Shelley and these English poets used to come to the La Spezia. We have this gorgeous gulf, and there is a traditional wooden goletta that we have booked for this tour. So it's a traditional boat that can handle, it's not a rowboat. I mean, it's a bigger boat. So it can handle the amount of people that want to come, but it also gives you a slower way to visit the coast. We're going to go to Porto Venere, which is a beautiful little town outside of the Cinque Terre proper, but also I think really worth going to visit. I also think we'll have lunch on the boat. We're going to go swimming. I also think the way to see this area is we started it our first day by the sea because I think that not only is it absolutely beautiful and relaxing, but it just gives you an idea of like what this area feels like because the sea is such a part of this Liguria region. We have the sea from the entire region has coastline. So, you cannot be in Liguria and not understand that. Then we're going to have a free night because people might want to relax. And then we are going to go right outside of Liguria. So we're not in Liguria proper. We're going to go to Carrara, which was on the 52 places to see in 2024 by the New York Times. It is where marble comes from. All of Michelangelo's marble comes from Carrara. And we're going to go on a private tour of the marble quarries. And I will tell you everything we're doing, Sarah, we have tested. So we did this a few months ago. We brought some friends and we're like, okay, let's pretend that we're the tour.
We did this actually with our paleo tour last year. It was hysterical. It's so much fun.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I will tell you, and the tour we found is a special tour. It takes you places that other tours don't go, which is like into the mountain. The technology that is behind this stone quarry work is incredible. So absolutely worth it. Then on the way back, we are going to go for a cooking class and a little light lunch at a winery. So we can make use of being over in that area, and it's right in Liguria and it's beautiful. And then we're going to visit Monte Marcello, which is a very, very tiny little village. That's stunning. It has all these little tiny houses. It's way up on a cliff. You can walk out to this viewpoint and you see the entire Gulf in front of you. It's just gorgeous. And then we're going to have a dinner together. I'm reading this off of our list here in Lerici, which is another little town right around the Gulf of La Spezia, this Golfo dei Poeti. And yet again, another place that isn't on people's radar. And it's totally worth going. And it will be perfect because we're on the way back. Then what we're going to do is we are going to pack up that next day and we are going to go to the north side of the Cinque Terre and stay in Levanto. So as I know you love Levanto, I do too, because Levanto is, we talked about how the Cinque Terre is all full of hills and hillsides, and yet Levanto is very flat. It has a very big, long beach. It's also a little bit more laid back, and we decided to make that our jumping off point because it's very easy to move around the Cinque Terre. It's also easy to move north of Levanto to some towns that are right next door. So we are going to take an orientation and people have time to have some free time. And then in the afternoon, we're going to go to Manarola and we're going to do a wine tasting with the best sommelier of the Cinque Terre. And this is a woman who is so passionate, fifth generation in Manarola, won the region's best sommelier a few years ago. And I will tell you, so you might know, Cristiano and I are both also sommelier because we decided that we would do this for fun because we're so interested in wine because it's so much a part of the local culture. I know a lot about wine and I know a lot about Cinque Terre wine. When I listen to this woman speak, she brings so much passion that I'm thrilled to be able to share that with people because it is just a beautiful way. And of course, then we'll take a little walk in the vineyards. I mean, it's a lot of fun and also the wine is really good. We will then go for a walk on the Via dell'Amore, and that's fingers crossed because you might know the Via dell'Amore is this little tiny path that connects Rio Maggiore to Manarola. It was closed for the last 10 years. It just reopened, and yet they closed it again because, oh my goodness, Sarah, this is like so Italy. They spent millions of dollars. We had a really bad storm last month and like a piece of the ceiling at one part, because part of this trail goes through the mountain, a piece of the ceiling broke off. So they've closed it again. I mean, I'm assuming by June of 2025, it's open. If it's not going to be open, don't worry. I'll take you on something better. Then we'll go back to Levanto. We're going to have dinner together as a group in Levanto. And of course, that means, you know, one of the things that I think is important about this trip is that you have a lot of time also to live like an Italian. So, you know, we get to walk to the restaurant. We'll walk back from the restaurant to the hotel. It's all very easy. But I realize when I'm in America, like visiting my parents, if we go to a restaurant, we're in a car and then we come home and we're still in a car. So we've tried to make this feel like you're living in this area. And I think that's really important. I think that's part of what people should treasure as like a vacation experience. So we've tried, even if, you know, we're not going to be just two people, we might be a little group of people. So as you know, the tour numbers are smaller. So you get to do things like you can go to a restaurant because we're not going to be a 50-person tour. So we can go to like local restaurant, walk there, walk back. I'm excited about that. Then we have the next day is, as we say, your vacation from the vacation, which is one of the things that I love in a vacation. So people are free to do what they want. We definitely will have a lot of thoughts and advice because, of course, we have a lot of thoughts and advice. You can go do hiking on that day. You could just hang out at the beach if you wanted to. You can also, if people feel more adventurous, like there are lots, you could go on a kayak tour. I mean, there's so many activities. or do nothing at all. And then we also have an e-bike tour that we will go to from Levanto to Buonasola to Framura. So part of it is like in these old train tunnels that have now become biking and walking paths. And Buonasola and Framura are these two little tiny villages next, they're north of the Cinque Terre. And I think they are absolutely charming and beautiful. And, you can get an ice cream or you can do a little hike on the boardwalk. I think that's a really nice option. Then what we are going to do is the next day, we are going to go to Genoa. And I think that Genoa it's a city, right? And it's a port city, and it can be a little bit overwhelming on your own. So what we've tried, that's why we've introduced it here, because we think Genoa is incredible and exciting, and there's so much to explore and discover. But it is a little bit easier if you're going with people. So what we're going to be doing is on the way to Genoa, we'll stop at Portofino. And Portofino is this very glamorous little tiny village, which has this beautiful port, all these boats, and maybe get some nice focaccia and walk around and just explore that area. And then I will do a guided tour on that. Then we're going to hop on a ferry to San Frutuoso. And San Frutuoso is one of my places that I love to go in Liguria. It is, as you know, we've been there together. San Frutuoso is this absolutely beautiful monastery that is literally on the sea, right in a little tiny gulf. And I just think it's so beautiful. You've got all this greenery and you have the sea coming practically into the church. It's beautiful to look at. It's very, one of the things that the nature of the air in Liguria, I know this sounds ridiculous, but my daughter is going to college in Milan. And I have some allergies. So I really notice like the air in Liguria. And I'm thinking like it's so fresh and clean because you have the sea, and everything behind this monastery and in the Cinque Terre is all these trees on the hillsides. So it just feels healthy. The air is not, there's no industry around. So it just feels like this lovely sea breeze everywhere you go. Okay, and then we're going to take another ferry after that. We're going to go to Camogli. Camogli is this beautiful, let's say, small city, large town, right on the water. It's a little bit bigger, so there's some really good shopping for anyone that's interested. It's also really interesting. There's a lot of sometimes they have a street market that has antiques. It's sort of old-fashioned Italy in a lot of ways. Less tourists, so that's a good thing also. And then we will go and wind up in Genoa, have dinner in Genoa. The next day we'll wake up and we are going to explore Genoa, and we are going to do a food tour, which is, again, hopefully we'll do the one that we just did two, and one of them that we just did, I'm hoping that's the one we'll do. A little bit depends on how many people sign up to do the tour. This tour was so incredible because you try a bunch of stuff that you've never heard of. I mean, that we don't even have on this side. Genoa has some specialty foods that we don't even have here in La Spezia or Vernazza. And Genoa, because it's a city that hasn't been traditionally on the tourist, let's say, world tour, there are so many little traditional and historical shops. And seeing these shops, I mean, it's a whole entrance into a whole nother world. I mean, people, there's a chocolatier, a chocolate maker, they make everything by hand. And you walk in this shop and they've got these incredibly beautiful machines that they've been using for the last 50 years. And also just, I mean, it's hard to explain, like the counter, it's like all this wooden and glass, and you see these shops that are literally a throwback, and yet they're busy and working, and they've got these beautiful interiors, and they really are take a lot of pride in their products. So that will be a really exciting time. And then in the afternoon, we will also do a city tour, because Genoa actually, because Genoa was always a big port city, and once upon a time before Italy became a country, you know that Italy was made up of maritime republics, and Genoa was very strong. They had a lot of wealth. They were a big area where boats came in and out of. And so we will do a guided visit into the city, and we will see a lot of incredible architecture, because Genoa has this very rich history of wealthy merchants and banks and all of these historical buildings that, I mean, my kids who are not necessarily into architecture when they were younger, especially, they love going to Genoa because there's so much to see and do. So I am excited about that. It's not, it's not going to be a boring, like, walk around and see architecture. I mean, I like architecture, but the normal person, Sarah, as you know, maybe doesn't want to be immersed in that. However, walking around the city of Genoa is fascinating because it is a modern city with all of this incredibly varied architecture. So I think that'll be really interesting. And then we will have a very, very nice farewell dinner all together in this beautiful location, and the food is incredible. It's a place that we've gone to now 3 times, trying it out, seeing it. We have a lot of places we like in Genoa, but we thought, okay, well, where's like a place that we'd want to take our tour? So that would be great. And then the tour ends. So the next day we get up, people have breakfast, and then they're off to do whatever it is they want to do. One of the things, I mean, it's you can come, right? You can come. I would love that.
This is a funny little side note. My parents recently did a Mediterranean cruise, and a lot of people who are watching this, you guys know my parents, and they went to all these different places: Barcelona, Rome, blah, 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 blah. And what was the thing they came home and they couldn't stop talking about? Genova, of all places.
Okay, because it's incredible. I mean,
they loved it more than anything else that they saw in the Mediterranean.
People are not. I don't think it's on everybody's list.
It's not.
Because I think, well, Sarah, I have to say, like, it is a port city. So some parts of Genoa can be like a little scary to figure out, like, where you're going, but that's why you're with us. I mean, I find Genoa to be a little bit, I used to find it intimidating because it's a big city, because it has a lot of different sections to it. But I've been going a bunch of times, and Christiana likes Genoa, and we've been exploring different areas, and Genoa is incredible. But yet again, I've talked to a lot of friends and people I know, and they go to Genoa and they're not necessarily seeing the right stuff. So, my bottom line at this point is, I think that if you travel in a way that is thoughtful, and you want to maximize your experience, but you also want to maximize the value you get for the money, I actually think a small group tour may be like just the right niche. Because, I'm just, as I was talking about, I've been to places that I'm like, oh, if I had known that, or like a friend of mine will call me and say, oh, you really need to do this. And I'm like, oh, I wish you would have told me. And again, not everybody has the time or the inclination to do it all themselves. And I feel like this view of Liguria, you know, it's only a week, so you can't know everything. I mean, I've been living here for 30 years and there's so much still to explore, which you can say about any destination. But I really hope, I talked to my sister this morning. I said, hey, you know, we're doing this tour with Sarah. Oh, what are you doing? And I walked her through it and she's like, oh, like, could I come? And I was like, no, you cannot come. My sister, she goes, I won't tell people I'm your sister, and then I'll start bad mouthing you. She's like, oh, I don't like this tour. I don't like this tour guy. I said, Mary, you can't come.
This is the thing that's so beautiful about having our local experts. I mean, I'm a pretty good Italy expert, generally speaking, but the reason I'm good at what I do is because I have friends who are even better experts at certain things. So I'm super excited to partner with you, Ruth. And for those of you watching, if you are interested in joining us for this Liguria and Cinque Terre tour, you can find information at adventureswithsarah.net. And my friend Ruth in the Cinque Terre can now be your friend Ruth in the Cinque Terre, because not only is she going to be your hostess there, but she's going to participate in all the activities with you. And she's just a heck of a lot of fun. That's why every time I'm in the area, I'm like, hey, Ruth, what are you doing? She's so much fun. So I think if you sign up for this tour, it's not just that you're going to be in a beautiful place, but you're going to be with a beautiful person who is so fun. It's just, you can't lose. So I would like to invite all of you watching to please go and check out the tour if that is interesting to you. Also, if you are going on your own, Ruth's apartment in Vernazza, I don't think there's a nicer Airbnb in all of the Cinque Terre. Honestly, I'm not, there's a lot of stairs. But once you get to the top, it's absolutely fantastic, but it books out way in advance. So you can, and your website is Cinque Terre Vacation? Is that what it is?
cinqueterrevacation.com. And for anyone who's following, follow me on Instagram at Cinque Terre Vacation, because what I'm going to try to do, Sarah, is, and I just have to get to it, I'm going to try to roll out a series of like little reels or little photos of this whole tour, so people can get a feeling about that, because there are a lot of things on this tour that I have never posted.
So why don't you WhatsApp those to me and I will post them on Adventures with Sarah. So anything you've got this week, go ahead and send that to me. Because she doesn't actually, if you don't follow Ruth, you should anyway. She's got lots of travel tips, videos, lots of great stuff like that. But why don't you just send me some stuff and I'll go ahead.
Great idea.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Ruth, for joining us today. And thank you, everybody watching, for joining us as well. You can find Ruth at cinqueterrevacation.com. And of course, me, you can find it at adventureswithsarah.net. And that's where you're going to find information on our Cinque Terre and Liguria tour, which, as far as I know, I don't know anybody offering a tour like this. So
nobody's doing it. And totally because again, you really need to be thoughtful, and my husband really put it together and he's really good at this. So I think it is the perfect thing if you're a couple, if you're a single, if you're a person who's super active, if you're a person who really just wants to kick back and like live dolce vita Italian style. Like this tour we're trying to make so that it gives you a little bit of everything and you can pick and choose how active or how relaxed you want to be.
Perfect. I'm sold.
Yeah, well, great.
I'm having a private tour that week. Otherwise, I would absolutely be there. So anyway, well, thank you for joining us. And then all this week on Facebook and Instagram, we're going to be posting a lot of stuff about the Cinque Terre, stuff from Ruth, stuff from me as well, articles I've written and all that. So we're just going to focus on thinking happy, sunny thoughts when it's gray. I should show you my backyard. It's completely gray outside. So I'm thinking sunny thoughts right now. So
yes. Okay. Well, it's 8:15 my time. So I'm thinking it's dark and, you know, it's November. So it gets dark early. But in June, when you come on this tour, it'll be beautiful daylight. And I think the sun sets around 9:15 at that time of the year. So the days are long and beautiful.
Okay, well, we'll be dreaming about that. So,
yay.
Okay, grazie, my friend.
Grazie, Sarah.
Love you. So talk to you again soon. Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao. Buona serata.